All right, and hi guys, welcome back to episode 2, is it now?
I think so.
Of the Modern Woman series. So we're happy to be back. We haven't been sacked yet, which is always a good thing.
It is good. It is.
How are you guys going this week?
Yeah,
What's been happening with you guys?
Really good, Nick.
Just isolation. And
Yeah.
Isolation, Facebooking.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Instagramming.
Yeah, all the important stuff.
Of course. Yeah. I don't know how we're fitting in any work around that, guys. So.
Exactly. All right, cool. Well, what are we going to talk about today, guys?
Well, I think the topic we came up with is one that I'm sure all women talk about all the time and want to hear about, and it's on the topic of aging. So,
that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, why do some women age quicker, or not just women, but why do some age quicker than others? What are the secrets? What are the myths, I guess, as well? You know?
What are the causes? We can go through that today, and maybe some things to, I don't want to say slow the aging process, but what we can do to really sort of support our bodies and support that process. So, I think we can touch on a lot today, which will be fun.
I think so too.
Cool.
Yeah. I think maybe we could start with what aging means to each of us, because it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
You know, and what we think of when we think of aging as well. So, I mean, I can start if you want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being the oldest, probably should start because I'm closer to the end than you guys.
It's all downhill from you, isn't it?
That white line is getting bigger and bigger so at a really rapid rate. So I think for me, as being in my late 40s, for me, aging is more about mobility and, you know, staying active and being able to move properly and cognitive function. They're probably the two biggest things for me. So, I mean, my goal in life is I'm going to live to 100 is my first goal. Yeah. And my second goal...
That's mine too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, we can be there together. And the second goal is to be able to just still do a squat and a deadlift at 100.
Oh,
wow.
That's my goal. So movement to
Nice.
me is really important, being able to be able to stay mobile. So that's the biggest thing for me, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I'd say I'm very similar to you, Nicole. Like, you know, for me, it's not really about the aesthetics.
Yes.
I really am not that focused on, you know, anyone who knows me, I'm like the least vain person, you know, don't wear makeup or any of that stuff. So for me, it's not about the cosmetic aspects, but it is that thing of feeling young. Like I've always wanted to be, you know, get to 80 or 90 and still be able to walk and do my exercise and stuff like that. And the cognitive aspect, definitely a big one. Because for me, without my brain, I don't know, you know, it's like, for me, it's quality of life. So for me, it's not just about getting old and staying alive for as long as possible.
Yes.
But it's having that quality of life. So definitely the mobility, a big one. I've always loved the idea of, if you watch kids, like how kids move, you know, the squats and they can kind of twist their bodies a little bit, that natural movement, jumping from one rock to another.
Yes.
It's like that natural movement is something that I've always wanted to better and maintain as I get older. So that's what it means for me.
Yeah, love that. I think I'm the same as both of you in terms of I think even in the last 10 years for me, it's been something that, from the aesthetic function and the look of aging, I guess when you're younger, you think about it in that way. You think, how do we look on the outside? Is that what aging is? And I've really come to see that it's more about how I'm feeling, and so how healthy I'm feeling, and am I able to still do the things that I was doing 10 years before that and 10 years before that. So for me, cognitive is a really, really big one. And also too, I've always had in my mind with aging, it's that something I want to be able to do is continuing to learn new things. So at a different age, and stretching myself and challenging myself. And I think that's what I start to see as that really supporting that aging process, you know. So I want to be 80 and learning new things. Yes. You know, I want to be learning new skills. I want to be challenging myself. So for me, aging is really about where I can push myself to physically, mentally, and even in I guess emotionally, and how I'm sort of showing up in the world as that person as I age. So
definitely. And I think that's what it is about, isn't it? You know, when you get older and older, you want to be able to do things for yourself and think for yourself, you know, and we see so many older people that do lose that cognitive function and that mobility, and it really makes them so reliant on other people, you know. And I think
that's a good
point,
one.
Nick.
You know, it's that self-reliance.
Yes.
I think for a lot of us, the independence is a big thing. Yeah. So just being alive and sitting in a nursing home and having other people take care of you, it's not kind of like what I want. It's not, you know,
exactly.
It's not living, is it?
It's not, and it's that quality of life you were saying, Elizma. So I think, and that's I think if we use that as not even just that sort of goal to work towards, but that goal to have now. So with our health, it's like, where is our quality of life now, and where can we continue to support that as we age? So
because it's important, when you're young, you don't think about this stuff, do you?
No.
But what I've learned is that it's what you do in the early years that really determines how you age.
Absolutely.
Because it catches up with you, doesn't it? The partying and the alcohol and the smoking and stuff like that in your 20s, 30s, it all catches up with you in your 40s and your 50s, doesn't it?
And I never understood that, because as you get older, you learn more, so you get wiser and wiser as you get older, and you think, why can't you have that wisdom when you got your youth, and you can actually really make the most of it? So then when you get older, you go, oh damn it, I wish I had thought of that when I was 20.
That's right. When you're older and you're already on the way out, that's when you can party and just let it all go.
I
right?
think it's all backwards.
So we're doing it backwards, basically.
Yeah, we are doing it backwards. Yeah, I know, exactly. So, so I think the other thing that really strikes me when we talk about aging is the first thing women think about is exactly what you said, Elizma, is appearance. So beauty. When they think of aging, it comes down to beauty, which is a shame, because that's only one part of it. And, look, a lot of us do have that in the back of our mind, but it shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of aging, because that then creates its own problems, its own stresses, and then we see sort of extreme behaviours to be able to keep that youthful appearance as we get older, which can run into a lot of different problems there.
Absolutely. And also, I think we touched on it in the first episode, it's that the more you actually try to do cosmetically to make you look younger, the older you actually look, don't you?
Exactly.
Doesn't always have the desired effect.
No.
It was interesting, like I saw, it was maybe like a month ago, there was a news article, and it was just kind of like about women who age really well, and they had photos. So this is like typically where the mothers get confused for the sisters, and so they had a couple of photos of mothers and daughters next to each other, and there was a couple where because I didn't read it, I was just trying to guess who's the daughter and who's the mother, and there was quite a few where I thought the mothers were the daughters, because the daughters wore a lot of makeup and stuff like that, right? And it actually made them look older.
Yeah, it did.
And I think it's that concept of aging from the inside out, isn't it? And if I think we can start to, flip that in how we view aging, that's where we start to really make the improvements that are long lasting, and the things that can, I think, start to really prevent and slow that aging process. I think we always think about the external, particularly with beauty, as you said, Nick. And it's really coming back to what can we do from the inside.
Absolutely. But then the skin also tells us what's going on in the inside, doesn't
exactly,
it?
Elizma.
So if you don't take care of the inside, the skin is one of the first places that will kind of show that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, it will also be good to kind of touch now, so what are the stuff that makes us age quicker? I guess the causes of aging. So what do you guys think on that?
Well, I already start to think in terms of that aging, Elizma, chemicals, pollutants in our environment. So not just things that we're putting on our skin, beauty, personal care products, those sorts of things, but the chemicals, the toxins in our environment that we're exposed to every day. And then even outside of that, what we're actually consuming. So what we're eating. So chemicals in our food, alcohol, smoking, so cigarettes.
Smoking
is
a big
that's
one.
a big one.
You really can see the difference in the skin with people who've smoked for many years, can't
exactly.
you?
Yeah. So they would be my sort of first view that I'd start with. What about you, Nick?
Look, I think for me the biggest one is stress.
Yeah.
And even things like we see a lot of women that have really high stress, and that's coming from things that they're doing that they think are healthy, and they're trying to get that, that sort of aging well. The exercise, but they're over-exercising, or the diets, but the diets are extreme and they're missing a lot of nutrients, so it's causing a lot of issues there. So, even trying to be healthy and going to the extreme can be detrimental and actually turn against you anyway, because you're increasing your stress. And then, again, that has those really negative effects on aging.
Absolutely. I think for me, nutrition is a big one. I learned very early on that sugar is very aging. Because as soon as I cut out sugar 20 years ago, the difference in my skin was just dramatic. So anything, I guess, that triggers inflammation in the body, and that could be different for some people. For me, dairy and gluten definitely also triggers inflammation. So cutting out those inflammatory foods definitely made a big difference.
Absolutely.
And then I think also, it's like you said, Nick, about extreme diets, like nutritional deficiencies.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, because there's a lot of nutrients that are very important for the skin, you know, like a lot of your minerals, zinc, your essential fatty acids. So if you follow a low-fat diet and you don't get enough good fats in, you know, that will give you like more drier skin and things like that. Collagen, which we get from protein foods and things like that, very important for the skin.
Yes.
So
Definitely. Yeah. So I mean, maybe we could go back and touch on sugar, because that is a huge one for people, and I think a lot of us don't really understand the impact that sugar really does have on us, on our health, and particularly our skin as well. So we could sort of touch on glycation and what that is and how that really does affect our skin as well, because that's huge for a lot of people. So
Well, I think it's that, you know, diets that are high in processed refined foods, and we touched on this in our last episode, because so often that there's those sugar molecules hidden in a lot of those foods. So often we might buy something that's packaged and we think, oh, well, it's not a sugary type food, but it actually has that sugar in there in whatever form. And that's where we have to maybe start to get a little bit skeptical about labels and what's being listed on there or not.
Absolutely. And a lot of your so-called healthy foods, right?
Exactly, Elizma.
Worst stuff ever. You know?
Exactly right. And that's, I often say too, when you go in that health aisle in the shopping centre, it's like often that's not the best aisle to be going into either. So, but basically, Nick, great point in terms of glycation, because that's where essentially those sugar molecules are binding to the DNA and the lipids in our body.
And the proteins.
So, and the proteins, so that it's already affecting what's happening on a DNA level. So that DNA damage is basically immediate when we start to consume sugar. And if we think about it, people are having sugar every single day in excess amounts. So that's just fast tracking that aging process.
Yeah.
So glycation is a huge one, I would say.
Absolutely.
It will affect those proteins, as you said. And one of the big ones that affects is collagen and elastin, which is what makes up the bulk of your skin.
Exactly.
And that's what gives you that plump, you know, look, that elasticity. So with the glycation, what happens is it starts to degrade those proteins. It makes them harder. They lose their colour, and they become sort of listless. And that's exactly what happens to your skin. You get wrinkles. You get sort of that pallor look. You know, and so it's really important how it does affect your skin in that way.
Because collagen, I guess, you know, when you look at it from a molecular perspective, they're kind of like fibers that have to kind of really fit in really nicely with each other, don't they? And so when there's damage to the fibers, or there's interference with how they form, it becomes more like a meshy, you know, kind of appearance, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's, you know, when we're talking about like you know, structure of the skin, that'll also, I guess, have the similar effect on things like the joints, the cartilage, because it's the same kind of proteins, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you get more of the immobility issues that you get when you know, as you age.
And that's it, isn't that's another big one, as we say, mobility, joint pain, that sort of thing is very common as well. So, I mean, I have a marker as far as aging goes. When you sit down, if you make a noise, that's when you're starting to get older. So we groan when you're sitting down. and then it gets even worse if you groan when you get back up again. So you know that things are getting bad when you're groaning on the way down and then back up again.
I like it.
And then you probably haven't experienced that yet, Elizma, Dan, and you probably haven't either, Elizma, but I have.
I thought you were going to talk about the noise like from your joints cracking or something like that.
No, it's just that groan when you sit down and you go, oh, yeah. And it starts that way, but then when you start to do it on the way up again as well, then you know you're in trouble.
The backaches and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of, you know, it just popped into my head kind of thing, like a big, also another, I think they use it more in terms of your risk of cardiovascular disease, but I think you could kind of say for aging as well, is flexibility, isn't it?
Yes.
Because they do the whole, the toe touching exercise, and the less able you are to touch your toes, the higher risk of cardiovascular issues you have. And the reason, my understanding is that, you know, if you don't have proper flexibility, it also means your blood vessels don't have enough flexibility. And those blood vessels are also made from collagen and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you don't have flexibility, you don't move as well. And once you can't move as well, then you can start to get injuries. Then you get injuries and you can't move. Then it just becomes a vicious, slide backwards. So, so flexibility is a huge one.
So that flexibility and mobility, when we think about aging, they're huge factors, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen, you know, if you see fit or people who've aged really well, they're usually like, you know, these old ladies still doing yoga and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So definitely a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stretching. I mean, I hate stretching, to be perfectly honest. It hurts.
It feels a bit like a waste of time too.
It does.
Right?
You know, when I used to train
Yeah.
and I used to have to do the foam rolling, and I would always avoid it. Like, you know, when you go to school and you sneak in late, so you don't have to do it. But yeah, it is important, but it just is painful.
Yeah.
It's really painful. Yeah.
But that's why but that's why, you know, you find times to do it, you know, like maybe whilst you're sitting and watching TV,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
may as well do
Yeah.
a bit of
Yeah.
stretching.
Yeah.
I know that for me, like a lot of people, you know, stretch before exercise. I actually found for me it was counterproductive. Like for me, it was the best time for stretching was at night time before bed, and then wake up in the morning and go exercise. That seemed to work really well for my body. So I guess going to bed, you know, nice and stretched and flexed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is a good idea for
Well, it
me.
is.
So,
Well, for many different reasons, really.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, lucky the guys aren't here, otherwise it could have gone in a whole different direction.
Yeah, definitely. We can see that going right off track then.
Yeah, but we're ladies, so we won't go there.
We won't go there.
But I even remember when I was growing up, my mum, we'd be sitting down watching TV, and she'd be laying down with her legs up the wall. And just laying there with her legs, and I think that was crazy, but it was a good stretch, and she's just sitting there watching telly and stretching. So, you know, there's things you can do.
Definitely.
And
it's just finding what works for you, I think. That's the other thing with movement and exercise, and we touched on this already, but it's if you're doing things that you don't enjoy or at times of day where you don't want to do it, find what works for you, create that routine. You know, that's the other thing with over-exercising. Is that aging us more than anything? And how often do we hear that?
Have you seen, you know, that's a very good point, because if you look at marathon runners, they age pretty quickly, right?
Yes.
They usually look a lot older. And that's because of the oxidative stress that gets created with excessive exercise. And also if you're not getting in enough antioxidants. And I think that's why it's so important for athletes or people who train a lot to make sure that they get a lot of antioxidants in, omega-3s, stuff like that. Because, exercise is good for us, but everything in excess does have a payoff, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It
And I
really
guess you've got to
does.
look at how the body works and what we're designed to do. And, you know, talking with someone who was a long-distance runner in the room is kind of hard.
Used to be.
But I mean, you know, we're not designed to run long distances. We're designed to sprint, you know, either away from something or, you know... But if we see something really cool and we want to run over there really quickly, we could do that too. But just that long running is just it's not healthy for us. It creates a lot of catabolism in the body, you know, and that can cause a lot of issues there. So we have to look at what our bodies are designed to do and you know, naturally as well as to natural movements and things like that. It's really
What about weights and stuff?
weight?
Good for bone density
Great
and things
for bone
like that,
density,
right?
yeah.
One of the best exercises for bone density, weight bearing exercise in general. But it's a great one, great for many different things. So I'm an advocate. Obviously, I've been doing it for a long time. I love it, and I feel like I talk about fitness a lot. I noticed last week I talked about it probably every time. I'm like, I want to do the fitness. So didn't mean to do that, but it's true. It's such a huge part. It should be a huge part of a part of everybody's life. And a lot of women do shy away from strength training because they think they're going to get bulky and have all those issues.
It's the opposite, isn't it?
It is the opposite. Yeah, generally they lean down, you get nice and toned, and just having that weight bearing is really important for bones, bone health and strength as well.
And that ties into, Nick, you know, if we really start to look at hormones as well, so how our hormones as women start to change as we age. And we won't go into it too much, but we know that particularly through menopause and postmenopausal estrogen starts to decline quite rapidly. But also too, and something that I find I'm talking about a lot more with my clients, even from a younger age, so even our sort of mid-30s to 40s, our testosterone is declining as well. Yeah. And we know that women have naturally less testosterone than men. I think it's almost, 25%, 30% less. Yeah. So those two hormones, as they decline as we age, we need to make sure we're doing things that will support maintaining at least what we do have there in that hormonal reserve. Because if estrogen is declining, we know that our bone density is affected through that. So that's one of the first things. So this starts to tie into, okay, how do we start to almost then prevent the effects of that? Resistance weights training is one of the really best ways to do that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then, you know, that estrogen is also important. You know, the boys have talked about this extensively. Important to get the collagen formation going,
That's right. Yeah.
So a very common thing that women experience as soon as they go through menopause is their skin starts to get thinner and more wrinkly and all of that. Right?
Yeah, exactly right, Elizma. So estrogen is so important for that plumpness of the skin. So we really can start start to draw on those connections there. And I don't want to go into too much into testing, but even I want to jump back to what you said, Elizma, with the oxidative stress. And actually, and I know we all use it, we do the Dutch testing, and we can start to see that marker.
Yes, I'm glad you bring that up. I wanted to, that's good.
And I must admit, I love that marker because it's it's one of those things where if we sort of catch it where it's starting to get high, I say to my clients, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
We've caught this at such a good time. We're showing, we can really see now, okay, you've got more oxidative stress and damage happening in your body. This is that sort of line that we draw in the sand, and we go, okay, we need to start to do things now to prevent that and to reduce that. Because if you were to continue going down the path that you are with whatever's there, with diet, lifestyle, any sort of imbalances there, this oxidative stress damage is just going to get worse.
And you're talking about the 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine marker,
That's
right?
the one.
That's the one.
Yeah, that big.
I know.
Do you know, I just abbreviate. I'm like, AOHDG.
I love abbreviations.
I practice it a lot. So.
That one.
But I love that marker as well.
Me too.
You know, and it's such a good indication of progress. Like, are you heading the right direction? Are you in the wrong direction? And generally, like your the ranges they have, I think, is up to 5.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've had clients who had levels of 20. You know.
Gosh.
But then after working with them and working on environmental toxins, detoxing, whatever the issue is, infections, anything that causes oxidative stress, we get that we get it from 20 down to 3 point something. And it's such an amazing feeling when you do that, and people love it because they're like, wow, you can see how everything is just they've been doing has made them actually age slower.
Exactly,
right?
Elizma. And what I love about that marker too, and I'm not sure if you've seen that, is that even women that and men that are in what we would call a younger age category that we wouldn't expect to have that oxidative stress damage, I've seen high levels in them. So in 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds,
it's not an age thing,
it's
right?
not an age thing. That's exactly it.
And I think just to clarify to the listeners, like that 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine marker, it's a sign of DNA damage because your DNA is made up of 4 nucleotides, which is adenine, guanosine, thymine, and cytosine.
Cytosine, yeah.
And so whenever we have oxidative stress in our body, and oxidative stress can come from infections, toxins, even stress, over exercise, anything that creates inflammation in the body, what then happens is it can damage these DNA kind of nucleotides. And that specific marker is measuring the guanosine marker. So if that guanosine nucleotide gets damaged, then it turns into that 8-OHDG, which is what we're measuring.
Exactly.
So that's why it's such a great marker for measuring the direct effects of your lifestyle or what's happening in your life right now on your DNA.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about functional tests too, because you do get to see it on paper. And as you said, it's not just the older people that are having this their high inflammatory marker. It is younger people, and at that point in time, aesthetically, you can't really tell that they are having all this oxidative stress. So for them to actually see it on paper really changes their perspective. So that's what I love about that.
No, it's a great test. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What else?
What else can we talk about aging?
Sleep.
Sleep.
How important is sleep?
Yeah, massive one, sleep. So I mean, we touched on sleep last week as well, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. But if we're not getting enough sleep, obviously that is going to affect our stress levels as well, and we know when we have higher stress that we have all those sorts of issues as well. So it's a huge one, sleep, and nobody's getting enough of it.
That's
I mean,
right.
maybe at the moment because no one's doing anything. But
That's right.
Or maybe not, because
maybe
everyone's
not.
they're watching Netflix
Well,
way
that's
too
true.
late.
Yes. My kids, I've got 2 teenage boys, and they're up until 3 o'clock in the morning. It's terrible. Not now because they're supposed to be back at school, but during the school holidays,
they
was
were.
just like,
Yeah.
what are you
Or
guys
watching-
doing?
Yeah,
You know?
Outlander, Danielle.
Outlander?
Outlander.
Oh, I love that show.
Never heard about Outlander until Dan brought it up, and I'm like, great, thanks. Now I'm like,
Binge watch
so
it.
binge watching Outlander.
Yeah,
No.
I don't
so-
usually binge watch things, but that.
For all you girls
it's
out there,
something,
if
right?
you want some thing to look at. There is some good
If you want to
ideas in
see
there.
how someone ages well, look at those two characters.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is totally
Right.
like that goes
Yeah.
against everything. But
Yeah, but that's okay. It's Outlander. It's different.
exactly. It's fiction. So,
That's right.
you know.
Oh,
That's
is
right.
it fiction? Damn it. Really? Just blew it off on the Dan.
But yeah, sleep's so important. I mean, I personally, and I don't think you really notice it when you're young, but you know, when you get into your 40s, I notice if I did not sleep well, my skin shows it the next day. My skin just doesn't look as great, you know. When you've had a good night's sleep, everything just looks fresher. So yeah, definitely can notice a difference.
Yeah, well, it's that classic thing, the bags under your eyes. How often will we say that? It's like if you've got bags under your eyes the next day, mustn't have slept well.
Yeah.
But then how long is that just, that's people are having years of bad sleep. Before they come to see us, I know as clients, you sort of ask them and they go, I haven't slept well in 7, 10, however many years. That's just being now their cycle. But
or they do say, no, I sleep fine. And then you go into it further and they're getting 6 hours sleep.
Exactly.
They're thinking that's normal.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly
disrupted
right.
sleep as well.
Exactly
So-
right.
It probably could be also a little to do with melatonin production, right?
Absolutely.
Because melatonin kind of spikes at nighttime, and that's kind of what makes you sleepy and all of that. And melatonin is an antioxidant in itself, isn't it?
It is.
Yep.
Yeah. And another thing, going back to the testing, we can look at that melatonin levels. And
on the
so,
Dutch test.
and I actually, once again, it's those patterns and the correlations we see. I've absolutely seen someone with very low melatonin and high oxidative stress.
Yeah.
Ah,
So it's
interesting.
that pattern that comes through, and then that maybe they've got some other hormonal imbalances. You then go and look at their cortisol, and that's all over the place because the stress is that impact as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we touched on that last week, but we know that stress has such an impact on how melatonin is rising and falling through the night. Things like GABA as well. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, with the correlations I've found in the Dutch test is also because it also can measure estrogen and how you metabolize estrogen. So I've seen women who are not metabolizing their estrogen very well, producing those quinones, which is like a
Exactly right,
toxic
Elizma.
secondary estrogen metabolite. And then they also have the high 8-OH2DG.
Eggs.
So now it's actually a short version. I kind of said a long
I threw
version.
off with the abbreviation.
But that, I found correlations with that as well.
Absolutely, Elizma. And now let's go a step further in terms of looking at another marker on there, which is your glutathione, which is our principal antioxidant when we really think about what goes into creating glutathione in our body. So we know we can produce glutathione, but how quickly, due to oxidative stress, inflammation, any sort of environmental pollutants, toxins, those sorts of things, anything we're consuming, how quickly are we then churning through those glutathione stores? And I see that a lot.
I see that a lot
So,
as well.
and that's that correlation, Elizma. I definitely agree when you start to see maybe estrogens going down that more reactive pathway, the high quinones, then we start to see glutathiones being churned through so the person doesn't have those reserves there. Then we start to see, okay, oxidative stress is starting to creep up in the cells and that DNA damage. So
Because glutathione is kind of like the anti-aging, and
It
it's
is.
a big anti-aging antioxidant, isn't it?
it is,
And one of the telltale signs of low glutathione levels is early graying of the hair.
Yes.
Because it's peroxide, right? It's hydrogen peroxide that creates that graying of the hair, and glutathione is the main antioxidant that neutralizes that hydrogen peroxide.
And we're all starting to see the people that have that issue now because no one's able to dye their hair.
Exactly. what did I read the other day? It's like we're now starting to see virgin hair again or something like that, right? It's like there's no more blondes. Like everyone's brunette, right?
That's right. I don't mind a world full of brunettes. We're all well, you're brunette too.
I used to be very blonde. I used to
Did
have
you?
peroxide. Yeah, when I was young, I looked like that Children of the Corn?
That's scary.
What?
I don't know if I'd
That
be
was me.
I can imagine you like that, Elizma.
But now that's all I want to see when I look at you. The old bowl cut. Yeah. I had the bowl cut when I was young too. That's just nasty.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. But glutathione.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, Elizma, that the point you made about the greying hair.
Graying of the hair, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why I have that on my intake forms, because it's like it's another clue that there could be a glutathione deficiency or something similar. I know that. I don't know if it's still popular, but there was a point that in the Asian countries it was very popular to buy glutathione creams and stuff to kind of supposedly whiten the skin or lighten the skin.
Yes.
Like, I don't really know if that works, but it used to be a popular thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us a little bit to things on top of the skin, right? It's like how many things get promoted as anti-aging products that we put on our skin that contains complete or whole proteins, because glutathione is a whole protein.
It is.
It's consistent of 3 amino acids.
It is,
Glutamate,
cysteine,
and glycine.
Glycine, yeah.
And so you combine those 3 and that makes a glutathione molecule. And the same is also to do with collagen as well. Collagen is a combination of amino acids. And there's a ton of products out there that claims to either have glutathione or collagen for anti-aging benefits. What's our thoughts on that?
Where do we
Nick,
start?
do you want to start on that?
Well, I mean, basically a lot of the products on the market, there's always going to be some good products on there, but there's a lot that aren't good, particularly talking about proteins and things like that when they are put on topically. A lot of times the molecules are too big to even absorb into the skin anyway, so they're not going to be doing a great deal other than lightening your pocket, pretty much.
Absolutely,
So
True, Nick.
so that's a big thing we see with that marketing of those things that a lot of times can be not entirely accurate.
Yeah. And I think that's where we come at from nutritionally and naturopathically, taking certain things, supplements, if they're taking for that reason of internal use. So basically, once again, from that inside out approach. So I would always say taking glutathione as a liposome, or I personally go down that pathway, but using, say, liposome or glutathione, you're probably going to get much better results than putting liposome as a topical on your skin.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like, talking about stuff that's used topically, is there's also a lot of chemicals in a lot of these products, isn't
exactly.
it? Exactly.
Such a good point, Elizma. So, and this is the thing, we're marketed things that say anti-aging, and we're shown that, it's crazy, we're shown that from such a young age as well. We almost think from, when we're teens and in our 20s, it's like, oh, okay, so we're aging now, that's just what's around me. My mum's got her anti-aging creams in a bathroom, so you just think that's just the natural process. But you flip around those labels, and whilst it might be marketed as anti-aging, you look at the chemicals that are in that cream or that serum, and when you're putting that on, that's actually doing more damage. That's becoming more of that toxic load to your whole system. And if anything, that's probably fast-tracking that aging process.
So many alcohols,
That's
parabens,
it.
and I think like perfumes specifically, I think that's because they put perfumes in even moisturizers and things like that to make it smell good. Now, perfumes, from memory, perfume is not just one thing. Perfume generally is a combination of 40 different chemicals.
Yes.
So when they put perfume on the label, you can add 40 additional things that you cannot pronounce on that product. Right?
That's scary, really, when you think about that.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the conversation we were having about the food label. We should probably be doing the same thing with our personal care products and looking at those labels in the same way.
And we don't. A lot of women don't. You don't think about it because you think you've got a healthy product, and you don't think about the fact that you're putting it on your skin. And your skin is one of your biggest detoxifying organs that we have, so it's also going to absorb a lot of these toxins as well. And women, I think they said that on average women are putting on about 30 products a day on their body.
Wow.
So between their creams and their hairsprays and deodorants and their makeups and their perfumes and the soaps and the shampoos and all that sort of thing, it really builds up. So and we don't think about that, toothpastes, things like that. That all comes into it as well. So so that's something to really be mindful of, because it can have a huge impact on our health.
Absolutely. And even like the whole thing of, and again, you get drilled like that as you go through puberty, and your mum starts to tell you about what women should be doing and all of that. You get told, you need a scrub, you need a face wash, you need this, you need, it's like a whole range of products. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of minimized a lot of that stuff, over the years. So, would you guys mind sharing what type of stuff you use, in terms of beauty products or skincare?
Well, I mean, I use all natural products, and I make sure that they are all natural. I have a couple of brands that I use that I actually know the person that developed that makes them, so I know exactly what goes in them. But I keep everything natural, even natural deodorants as well is a huge one. And, toothpaste, shampoos, that sort of stuff is all. And, like I said, I make sure that I know if I can, who's made it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a really big one.
Yeah.
And if not, that I can see what ingredients are in it. And minimal is better because,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
it's not, as we said, it's not just what you're putting on your body, it's what you're putting in it that has the bigger effect.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, Nick.
Yeah.
It's and I think, you know, for me, I've definitely made that transition more so in recent years. So probably in the last, I'd say 5 years in terms of the beauty products. So I sort of started with one thing. It's like, okay, can I change my shampoo and conditioner? And this is what I say to a lot of my clients, particularly younger clients, because they might feel quite overwhelmed because all they've ever used is, you know, they've just had their usual shampoo and conditioner, the makeup that they buy, the creams and things that they put on their face, moisturizers, cleansers, toners, all of those things. So when you turn around and say, we need to find a way to make all of these things natural, it's quite overwhelming. So I always say start with what's easy, body washes, those sorts of things, deodorants, as you said, Nick, and then sort of work to transitioning. If you're wanting to wear makeup every day, that's fine, but we can find more natural options. And and the thing is, the beauty I think of today as well, we've got a lot of options available to us. But another thing is just also to letting your skin breathe. I like to say have some makeup free days. If you're someone that, you know, Monday to Friday you're at work, on the weekend if you can, go without makeup. You know, see little things like that. They're all things that are going to contribute to just improving your overall skin health and also the burden that is placed on our body when we're using so many different personal care products every day. So,
and it can be even a little bit like what we talked about last week with preparing your own food. There's so many great books around now and on the internet with little recipes that you can make your own skincare products, and they can be really simple and really cheap.
Exactly.
And you know exactly what's going into it. You sort of have that, you know, I made this as well, and there's that, you know, put that love into it, that energy into it. And so, you know, while we're all sitting home in lockdown, get on the nutrition. And sometimes it could be things you've got in your cupboard, you know, your coconut oils, avocados, honey, oatmeal can be, you know, oats, that sort of thing.
Skin masks. Yeah, skin masks is a big thing that you can do, like with the oats and the avocado and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's another good way to sort of start to reframe your thinking about what you're putting on your skin.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, so what else could we be looking at that, you know, contributes to aging?
Epigenetics, you know, genetics and epigenetics are a big thing. And, you know, we had a bit of a chat about it. One of the big things that we really want to emphasize is genetic polymorphisms or mutations in genes, you know, is a minute amount of if you want to call it in terms of causes of illness or anything like that. It's about 10%. 90% is epigenetics, and epigenetics is the expression of those genes, right? And epigenetics, you know, the reason why that's so important is because that kind of like dictates what genes we switch on, which genes we switch off. And of course, we want to be switching off the inflammatory and illness-producing genes in terms of aging well, you know, as we go along. And I don't know about you, Danielle and Nicole, but what I often see on testing is I can't tell you how often this happens, where people have, because the organic acid test is a great kind of indication of genetic expression, right? As well as the Dutch test. It's almost like every single time I see people with markers for genetic expression in, let's say, MTHFR, but they don't have the gene polymorphism. And then I see people with a gene polymorphism and they have no signs of genetic expression. So you cannot correlate those two in terms of genetic mutation and, well, that means I have to take a supplement for my genetic mutation, right? Just doesn't work like that. But again, a lot of nutrients are needed in that methylation cycle that's involved in epigenetics, right? So what, B12,
folate, B6, B2, they're all so important.
And protein foods, right? Because the methionine, which is the main amino acid found in animal products, and vitamin B12, which you can only really get from animal products, plays huge roles in that methylation cycle, right?
Absolutely.
So, and that's what we see a lot of time with people going plant-based diets. Nothing wrong with a plant-based diet, but you have to be really, really vigilant in ensuring that you are getting all those nutrients in because, you know, as you said, your B12, your folate, your B6s, that sort of thing are really important, and those amino acids particularly as well for particularly phase 2 liver detox as well. That if you're not getting those in, then you do start to see those issues coming up.
Absolutely, and then that'll affect how you detox. It'll affect how, you know, which genes are switched on and which genes are switched off.
Exactly.
So I see that a lot in people who again, like you said, not about bashing vegans or vegetarians, but when there are nutritional deficiencies there, it really has a large impact on even making glutathione.
Absolutely.
That methylation cycle flows into the CBS cycle.
Yes.
And that's where we make glutathione.
Yes, exactly
so
right, Elizma.
All flows into each other.
It does.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is. And I think I love that you've touched on epigenetics, because I think genetic testing has really blown up in our industry, probably in the last even 5 years, I'd say. It's just been that thing that I even found a lot of clients, they were the ones that were going to their practitioners saying, I want to do this gene test. This is the thing that I think will help me. And which is fine. I think we should always be educating and empowering ourselves to seek information and to see, what works for our health and what doesn't. But what I always had the discussion about was that you can't just do a genetic test and then expect that you can make those changes based on that result and everything else will improve. So it's about your lifestyle, it's your diet, it's the foundations, as we always talk about. If those things are not in place, the environment in which those genes are existing, that is what is affecting the genes. It's not that you have the gene itself. And that's exactly right what you said, Elizma. We can see someone who could have all these polymorphisms. They could have all these genetic SNPs in there, and they're actually really healthy because they're doing so much to prevent any changes that are there already. So they're supporting the genes that are there, and we can do that.
Because if you look at epigenetics and you look at what interferes with certain genes, or I should rather say the enzymes, because the genes encode for the enzymes,
exactly.
Right? And so the things that interfere with these enzymes, infections, toxins, mercury, all that kind of stuff, inflammation. I mean, I myself, I've got all the genes for diabetes and obesity. I've never had it, so
you definitely did,
So it's like, if you take care of your health and you take care of your environment, your genes is definitely not your destiny.
Exactly.
But it is about nutrition, and it is about reducing all that oxidative stress, isn't it?
And I think that's where there is a danger around genetic testing as well, because once you do see that you do have these propensities for this gene expression, then you stress about it, then you focus on it, and then you basically create what you've seen on the paper. A lot of times just doing exactly as you said, Elizma, healthy, living a healthy lifestyle, eating well, sleeping well, all those foundational things that we keep going on about, you can avoid a lot of that anyway. And sometimes, knowing can be more detrimental than not knowing in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely, And again, then people take supplements for their genes, and they end up, I've seen people with like up to 20 supplements. And I'm just thinking, because a lot of these supplements have binders and things like that in as well, right?
Exactly.
All those excipients,
all those excipients. You just think, my gosh, I don't know how you get time to swallow all these tablets, but what about the build-up of all of those excipients?
That's it. And even, touching on the MTHFR, don't want to go into that too much.
I feel like someone should be saying something here. It's really weird that no one's come up with we're just sticking to that.
Said the key word.
No one said it.
The N word. That's right.
Do you want me to say it? Go
on, say it.
The methyl tetrahydrochloride.
That one. No, I was thinking more of the other one. The one the guys talk about.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's strange that hasn't come up.
That didn't even cross my mind.
No, Dan, because it wouldn't.
Me neither. No. What is your brain for?
Well, I don't know. Hang on. I don't know, actually. Well, actually, you don't want to know what my brain's for.
Oh, gosh. No,
that's right. Most common gene, isn't it? Like, I think most people know about this gene. And, well, I'm sure you girls hear it too, but it's like, I've got MTHFR. That's why I've got blah, blah. And it's like, well... No, it's not.
It's not. Yeah, exactly.
But point taken. You got the gene mutation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and even the forms of supplements that we're using, how often do you see people on all these methylated forms as well? And we won't go into that. But when you think about the methylation cycle and what's actually happening in the body, we don't always need those.
No.
So, and long term as well. So you see someone that's been taking methylated B vitamins for years, and it's like, is that really addressing the root cause again?
I mean, they're coming to see us and they're still having the issues, so clearly it's not working.
Clearly it's not working.
Exactly.
And it is about, I find that a bit like trying to micromanage your biochemistry, right?
Yes.
Because the methylation cycle, I mean, you'll be over and under methylating 1,000 times a day because it changes in terms of what you've eaten, if you've eaten, if you exercise. It's continually fluctuating. So to try and manipulate biochemistry by a single supplement is just ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
And then are we going more to that medical model of mechanistic treatment, where we're breaking it down and focusing on one thing rather than holistically, where we're sort of looking at the machine as a whole rather than trying to pull one thing out and change that.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't work.
And it is about, I'm a big believer, remove the interference and the body will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
But the body can't heal or can't get better if there's interferences, no matter how many supplements you take, right? The main thing is, again, remove the interferences, like the stuff we talked in the beginning. That's all to do with diet, infections, toxins, all the stuff that accelerates that aging process.
Sometimes we've got to get out of our own way. I mean, the body knows what to do. And, we might see someone and they come in and they think their body's just turned against them. It hasn't. Your body's trying to keep you alive. And so all these changes, that's your body's way of keeping you functioning.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we look at test results, like even blood tests, right? We'll look at it and we're like, oh my gosh, there's all these things wrong and I need to fix it. And what I think we need to start considering is markers on any kind of a test it's not like it's bad. It's showing us, your body has adapted. There's something happening, your body's adapted to try and keep the cells alive or stop the cells from dying. And the markers we're seeing is just telling us how the body is adapted. So it gives you a clue of you have to ask the question, why has the body felt the need to adapt? And go back to that. But again, just fixating on markers and like, well, this mark says you need to take this nutrient is, again, in my opinion, a bit of a short-sighted approach. So I always like to look at test results more as my way of seeing, like, how has your body adapted, and then why has your body done that? Why has your biochemistry changed?
Exactly. It's an overview. It's a big picture. Essentially. So and that's why you can't put someone on a statin and expect everything to get better, because then you'll find other things get worse, because again what you've done is you've pulled one marker out and treated that, and then that's going to throw the balance of everything out even more. So that's a really good point, Elizma.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, what else? Cognitive function.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Right? Particularly for the older women going through menopause, we see a lot of we see clients saying they've just got brain fog, they can't think straight, they're losing, they keep forgetfulness, that sort of thing. Couldn't think of it then. So I find that's a really big one, particularly with women as they're going through menopause. But cognitive function is huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, again, there's quite a few nutrients that's involved in there as well, right? I mean, some of the most common nutrients that they use for early dementia is folate and vitamin B12, isn't it? Big nutrients there.
Exactly right.
And then we also have our fats, our essential fatty acids, because the brain is predominantly made up of lipids and fats. I think. That's right. So your DHA, EPA, or your omega-3s.
Well, that's why you see, back in the, maybe not so much nowadays, but even when I was going to mention fitness again. Sorry, this is the last time I mentioned fitness. When you see that extreme dieting, back when I was doing it, there was low fat and all that sort of thing. And you would see, girls in their 20s and they lose their cognitive function because of having no fats. There's a huge impact on the brain.
So it's essentially starving the brain of that. And when we think also too, from a cellular level, skin, the plumpness of the skin, we need fats for that as well. So if you think about the brain in the same way, how that aging process can start from there as well. Amino acids, of course, when we start to think about neurotransmitters, that cognitive function, we need those amino acids there, proteins. So, and how often do we see that women as well, particularly, are not eating adequate protein, they're not eating adequate fats. Really, they're just nutritionally deficient across the board. So, of course, they're literally starving the brain there. So,
and then we can talk about fuel. What is the brain cells, what do they need for this cognitive function? And the brain can pretty much use two types of nutrients for energy, right? Glucose, which is your sugar, and then ketones, which comes from fat burning. Now, so this is kind of like where a lot of people say, you need sugar because, that's what your brain kind of needs. I actually found like there was a time, when I was really fit and really, I sort of on the top level of my fitness, I guess. and I was very much in ketosis.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how good that felt. Like my brain was so sharp, and it's like almost like I saw stuff that I've never seen before, right? It was just like my brain.
It was just ketosis that you're in?
Well, my brain was just like picking up all this stuff. It just, when you watch those sci-fi movies and see smart drugs and they kind of like pick up on all of this stimuli, that was like kind of how it felt. I was just like, this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
So for me, ketones was a way better fuel source than glucose and sugar. Sugar makes my brain foggy and all of that. Sure, it makes the brain cells survive. But ketones for me is by far a superior source of fuel. And the way that we can make ketones, is through weight loss, through intermittent fasting, through anything that kind of, not overeating, not over consuming stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really important one. I guess even other things like, I don't know, what other things can we touch on? Growth hormone's a really big one, I think, as far as aging goes as well, because obviously that declines as we age. And, ways that we can increase our growth hormone can be really effective. I mean, there's so much going around now with particularly peptides and things like that as far as increasing your growth hormone, which can be a bit of a slippery slide because, we don't know the full effects of exogenous growth hormone. What are ways that we can look at increasing our growth hormone naturally? Well, let's first talk about what growth hormone is good for and what it does in our body, and then ways that we can raise it naturally.
Well, that's kind of where the sleep comes in as well.
Yeah, it does,
because
absolutely.
The peak of growth hormone is it around 12 o'clock?
Around
midnight? Well, it's somewhere in the night, right?
Yeah, in that slow wave sleep is where it comes in.
Yes,
So you need to sleep to produce growth hormone. That's why bodybuilders sleep a lot.
Yeah.
For them, it's about training, eating, sleeping, right?
Yeah.
And that's because that's in order to stimulate that growth hormone. And so growth hormone,
I also like looking at that central adiposity as well, Nick. So looking at the muscle mass to body fat percentage ratio, that's heavily affected as well by growth hormone. I see growth hormone as, once again, another antioxidant. So that's coming in to support that oxidative stress as well. So if we're not producing adequate growth hormone, then we're not getting that support for our cells that we need overall. So I think also too with growth hormone, what I've seen is I've definitely seen the correlation with sleep issues. Elizma, I've seen that quite a lot, particularly with women. But also that overall physical performance. So it comes back to what we were maybe speaking about in the beginning with that mobility, that strength, those sorts of things. If we don't have adequate growth hormone, we can't be doing those things that we naturally should be doing and physically, and it doesn't matter also what age, because we should be finding ways to support that. So I also want to tie in as well, I see that connection with the HPA axis a lot with growth hormone and effects on that. So we know that that constant stress around that adrenal system, nervous system, that also will start to interplay with growth hormone production as well. So we know if we've got too much cortisol, too much adrenaline, those sorts of things, and that's can be constant for a lot of people, that growth hormone is one of those things that can start to suffer. And we see that cascade then with other hormones we know, progesterone, estrogen, those sorts of things.
Remember, I think growth hormone also stimulates LDLR, which is your LDL receptors. So LDL is what most people know as the bad cholesterol. Even though it's not really quite as simplistic as that. But by stimulating LDL receptors, it kind of like improves the way that LDL or that cholesterol can bind to those receptors and then be used and metabolized and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess that it's another kind of way to tie in with the weight loss aspect or the cholesterol aspect, right?
And how often do we see that as on pathology? Sometimes someone's got good HDL, but their LDL is maybe still a little bit elevated as well.
We see that a lot.
So we start to query as well. And I like what you've said there, Elizma, in terms of maybe this is where we can start to look at other factors, so the growth hormone. So
I like that because imagine if you see someone and their cholesterol is okay, the HDL is okay, the LDL is just a little bit high. Wouldn't it be so cool if just improving their sleep brings down their LDL just from their growth hormone, right? Sometimes it can be so simple.
Well, I mean, stress has a big factor on LDL or cholesterol in general, but LDL. So it comes back to that. Sleep, stress, anything that does cause that HPA axis activation in your body and increase that stress level does have a huge effect on cholesterol. And a lot of people don't correlate the two. And I said, but I don't eat, well, for one, I don't eat bad fats. And so, and I know, well, it's more sugars and things. But, you know, it's more that high stress, that insulin, that sort of thing that actually increases that LDL.
So what I would love to do one day is, I think this needs to be done at some point, you know, and hopefully someone out there can do that. But I think taking tests, whether it's blood tests, organic acid tests, or whatever, and someone who obviously shows up with a lot of metabolic markers, and then without actually giving that person supplements or medication, changing other things like sleep, diet, blah blah blah, and then retesting, or even like, you know, meditating and stuff like that, you know, a lot of that mental health stuff, then retesting and seeing if the markers have changed, right, without doing supplements or medications. I would just love to see that one day. You know, how can we change things? And it's not always the answer is not always in a pill, is it?
It's not. And we see it all the time with clients. You know, we might be doing things with them, but the foundation is, okay, let's improve your sleep first. Let's get your stress levels down. And then they'll come back to us and they're sleeping so much better just from doing some stress management or just from pulling back a little bit. So it makes a huge difference just with those lifestyle changes, which is why we keep banging on about it, because it is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So what else? What are some other issues around aging? Oh well, you know, or how else can we age well?
Well, you know, I'm a big fan, and I'm not, you know, I will not go into deep biochemistry, I promise. But I'm a big fan of the whole NAD hypothesis. So NAD, you know, I remember reading about this 20 years ago, and I was so excited about it, and no one knew what I was talking about. So I felt for a long time like I couldn't discuss my favorite topic because I know what to share it with. But lately, you know, I've seen it pop up a lot more in the last year or so, like everyone with supplements to increase NAD. So I think there's a bit more awareness out there.
Absolutely.
But NAD has long been proposed as the anti-aging molecule. Now, of course, there's, you know, I do have issues with certain supplements being promoted as redox molecule, you know, beneficial, you know, supplements. Again, it's the same as with the methylation cycle. Like trying to manipulate redox molecules is like, oh, well, good luck with that, because again, that changes 1,000 times during the day. The biggest things, because I did a lecture a few years ago for medical professionals on NAD and redox signaling and stuff, and it was I had so many of the doctors say after the talk, you know, and showing like the impact of aging and illness and chronic illness and all of that stuff. The main thing they ask is like, so what do we take? What's the tablet? What's the magic tablet to kind of fix this?
What's the magic pill?
I said, well, it's not eating and exercising, because exercise increases NAD levels and not over consuming foods. So that could be intermittent fasting or just reduced caloric intake, not overeating, right? That is kind of what increases these NAD levels. So you don't need a tablet to increase it. But NAD has been shown, you know, one of the things that it does is it binds to or activates SERT genes. I think some of you may be familiar with the SERT genes. It's been talked about, you know, for a long time now as the anti-aging genes. You know, they did a lot of, I think, worm studies and stuff on SERT genes and stuff like that. So showing that if you activate these genes, you know, you can live over 100 years old and all of that. And the main cofactor for those genes is NAD, which is just really an activated form of vitamin B3.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's issues. That doesn't mean if you take vitamin B3 that you will be making NAD. Like I said, the things that its opposing molecule is NADH, right? So you can imagine like this little I guess what you call it, like a seesaw. So on the one side you'll have NAD, on the other side you'll have NADH. So they're constantly in a seesaw with each other. Now the things that increase NADH is, number one, alcohol. Alcohol is like an NADH booster, right? So you will be suppressing your anti-aging NAD if you drink alcohol. That's a given. And then any kind of excess calories, you know, will also kind of increase it. That's probably the two most common things. So again, you know, even talking fancy biochemistry, it goes back to diet,
Simple
lifestyle, exercise, not
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, the body's smart. You can't outsmart the body. It knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. It always comes back to the simple things. Everyone
does.
tries to complicate it and separate it, and it never works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Micromanaging, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important, Elizma, as you're saying there, because we could go out and, for example, we could start buying NAD supplements, couldn't we? So someone might listen to this and go, I'm going to go take NAD. But it's if you're still eating in that sort of caloric overload, you're eating a lot throughout the day. What I find too with that, Elizma, I wanted to touch on is people that snack a lot as well.
Yes.
So they're never having that sort of break for their cells to start to regenerate and those sorts of things. So that NAD is not being produced then. So that's another thing that I find. So not even just intermittent fasting, it's just how much are you actually consuming food? When do you have breaks from that across the day, and how close to bed are you eating, those sorts of things. But if, as well, if you're still drinking alcohol, but you're taking an NAD supplement,
it's kind of
pointless,
Yeah.
really, isn't it?
So you're just really wasting your money.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because food, ultimately, if you eat food and it gets broken down in cells and the mitochondria, you're producing hydrogen atoms,
Yes.
right? And that's an H.
Yes.
So if that hydrogen atom then binds to the NAD and makes it NADH, right? So you can't really, micromanage it like that.
You can't, yeah.
And you kind of like, you made a good point, Danielle, about that constantly eating. Because for us to regenerate our cells have to go through apoptosis, right? So apoptosis is essentially cells committing suicide. And I'd say diseased cells committing suicide, right? Now, interestingly enough, it's the way that I sometimes explain to my clients is like, your cells still need enough energy to be able to commit suicide, right? So imagine like if your cell is like this guy, like sort of like crawling along the floor, and it needs to go and press the button. It still needs just enough energy to go and press that button, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then those dead, or those, I shouldn't say dead, but I guess diseased cells, damaged cells, will just keep floating around, and that's kind of what will accelerate aging as well, right?
Absolutely.
So apoptosis is a big thing. We need to be able to kill off those old damaged cells so that we can regenerate new cells, new healthy cells.
Yeah.
And one of the easiest ways to kind of stimulate that apoptosis is fasting, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
And when you look at, again, our ancestors, they weren't eating all day.
Yeah.
They might just get one meal a day sometimes if that's all they can find.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to what is it that our body is designed to do. We're not designed to sit there and eat, 3 meals, 3 snacks, 4 snacks, half an hour between meals or snacks, we're not designed to do that, and that causes problems in
It's
itself.
almost like eating every 3 hours, isn't it?
And that used to be a big rule with the I don't want to
I'll say in the fitness industry.
but it was. You can't go more than 3 hours without eating because you're going to become catabolic and
It's the big
all these
things.
crazy things.
I remember hearing that rule when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was a
really?
big thing.
It was
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah.
And supposedly stimulating your metabolism.
Exactly.
And all that, right?
That word, stimulating your metabolism. So everyone thought, okay, I'm just going to keep eating.
Yeah.
But then how many people did we see that just didn't work for?
Exactly.
And it may have worked for a short period of time, but it didn't work long periods.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, is that actually what's natural to the body? Probably not.
And then intermittent fasting, look at the results, great results a lot of people get from that, because you're allowing your body to do what it's designed to do, to have that time to regenerate, to repair, where it's not, because if you think about, if you're constantly putting food in your body, it can't do anything else because it's trying to digest what you're eating.
Yeah.
It doesn't have time to do the other functions that it's supposed to do. So you need to give it that space to be able to do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely, Nick. And I think if intermittent fasting for some people might sound a bit daunting if they haven't ever done it, or if they have tried it and haven't had good results when they tried it. So there's things that, firstly, I would say maybe working with a practitioner to help you with that and to work around, okay, if you tried intermittent fasting, what was the blockages there? What stopped you from getting the results from that? So we can delve into that. But as a very baseline level, what I say to some of my clients is, let's just get you fasting at least 12 or 13 hours over overnight. So it's a simple rule, but saying have your last meal at 6 p.m, 7 p.m, and don't be eating again until 7 a.m, 8 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't even have those cycles in place. I know a lot of people are eating at 10 p.m. at night, and then they might even be snacking after that, and then they're waking up and trying to have breakfast before they run to work. So it's almost like the body is still trying to digest and recover and regenerate from that meal the night before, and then they're eating again the next morning and constantly snacking across the day. So that's a really simple way that I start to get some of my clients to use.
I think it was I can't remember. There's a doctor who is like so into this whole time restricted eating and stuff like that. And I remember I think he said you need a minimum of 12-hour break, overnight break, right? But anywhere from 12 to 16 hours is kind of like a good kind of a time frame. But I'm very sure he said something like around 12 hours or. Yeah, I'm very sure it was 12 hours. But it's you need like this specific time where all of these things kind of seem to be resetting.
Absolutely.
Where you can reduce like the incidence of chronic illness going forward.
Blood sugar fluctuations as well. So that might start to feed into that glycation we were talking about earlier. So it's another thing where that fasting period is so important for aging, you know, when we start to look at those processes happening there.
So fasting essentially can get us into ketosis and feed our brain. It can increase our NAD levels, which will activate our anti-aging genes. It will increase apoptosis or get all those old cells to die off and new cells to regenerate. So there's a lot of benefits in just, being mindful of how much and how often you eat, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And then I guess you've got to be careful you don't go too far the other way, particularly with women. When we see women that are fasting for they're doing a long fast, so even like a 16, 18-hour fast, and then they're having issues there. So it comes back again to listening to your body and knowing what works for you, because it might work really well for some women and other women they can't. Yep. So then that's exactly what we say. As you said, Dan, we said try an overnight fast, because you sleep half the time anyway. It's a lot easier. Yep. And you're not going extended periods of time without eating. That then can be detrimental. So a lot of women with adrenal dysfunction, that sort of thing, it can have a negative impact on them.
Absolutely.
So you want to make sure that it's sort of in line with what your physiology at the time. So you've got to bear that in mind as well. But definitely, fasting. I mean, my ideal sort of day is, you do your 12, 14-hour fast overnight, you get up, you go do some exercise, fasted, then you come back, that helps with cortisol, getting that cortisol up. It helps with blood sugar, keeping that blood sugar nice and stable throughout the day as well, and then get into your day. And that can be a really simple way just to get yourself going in a healthy way.
And I think we have to emphasise, I probably should have been a bit clearer. When we talk about fasting, we are not recommending that people should just stop eating or anything. No. So we're talking about fasting more in a regular everyday sense, like Danielle said about overnight fasting. So or just not snacking. Yes. So that's kind of, you can still have your 2-3 meals a day, but it's about being mindful about how much you eat, and it's being mindful about not eating too constantly. Yeah. So that's kind of more where we talk about fasting in that context.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
Something I think that's also involved, or something we see a lot as we age, is eyesight, isn't it? So the loss of eyesight.
Yeah, that's a massive one.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues around that. Well, I mean, I keep talking about myself. Why am I doing that? That's what you're here for, Nick. My mother is totally blind, so I grew up with the blind mother. So that's always been something that I'm really aware of. It's not genetic, but I've always been really aware of my eyesight as well. And now having to get reading glasses in the last 6 months is like been a big thing for me.
It's really downhill.
It's really bad. I can say one thing is, do not get glasses unless you absolutely have to, because now
because your eyes get lazy.
I know, right?
Yeah. I was supposed to get glasses when I was 8 years old, right?
Wow.
So I've got astigmatism, right? So what I did, because I was a sneaky little thing, is I actually because they gave me these exercises to do, right?
Yeah.
I memorized the whole thing. So I kind of passed the tests without anyone knowing kind of stuff, right? That's been my argument. It's like as soon as I get glasses, my eyes will get worse. Yeah. So my argument has always been, now I'm waiting for that laser surgery to become cheaper and better. Yeah. So the longer I wait, I figure the better and the cheaper the surgery would be, right? So I'm waiting until then. Yeah. But Yeah, a lot of people, the eyes are often the very first place you notice changes when it comes to aging, right?
Yeah.
And that's because the eyes are so sensitive to oxidative stress. Because it's the only organ in the body that has an ending blood vessel, right? And that kind of means that when you have, all your blood vessels in the body, there's always alternate routes to take. It's like a mesh of highways. If the blood can't, if this artery is blocked or this blood vessel is blocked, it finds a different way to get where it needs to be. The eye is the exception. It's literally like a dead end road, right? The blood vessel that goes in, it stops, and there's nowhere else to go. So if there's anything going on with that blood vessel glycation or anything like that, your eyes will definitely be one of the first things to kind of experience any symptoms.
Absolutely. And what's one in terms of nutrients and supplements? I know a lot of people have been talking about astaxanthin for eyesight. So basically, to put it simply though, we're looking at things that are that high antioxidants, aren't we? So the eyes really need those antioxidants to support the health overall. So that's why astaxanthin is one that's being thrown around a lot, and I've seen a lot of people
And where do you get
use
astaxanthin from in the food chain?
Well, all of your colourful veg, your reds, it's the orange, and
it's also that pink that you find in salmon, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's the very high. That's why they get the astaxanthin a lot from salmon and stuff like that, isn't it? So again, you can get these things from your diet, and blueberries is another one. The
Blueberries is a
antioxidants.
big one that we use in herbal medicine for the microcirculation of the eyes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so really important. And obviously, what do you see a lot of with diabetics? They can end up having eye issues as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that high sugar, that glycation again affects the eyes as well. So that's something. And I think when you're young, you don't think about your eyes so much and your vision and that sort of thing. So it is a really important area to
and the eyes is also the extension of the brain, right? So the eyes is actually the part of the brain that we can physically see. And so that's why DHA, as important as it is for the brain, or omega-3s, is also very important for the eyes as well, right?
And then when we do a lot of iridology in natural medicine as well, and the eyes, they're a really important part of the system, and they can tell us a lot about the rest of the body as well. It's something that we really need to focus on keeping healthy.
And it contains a lot of hyaluronic acid as well, isn't it? So hyaluronic acid is kind of what gives the eyes that squishy plumpness. So without the hyaluronic acid, just like it is in the joints, things dry out, don't they? So the eyes kind of dry out, the joints kind of dry out, and again, to make hyaluronic acid, it's your amino acids, your collagens, your minerals, all of that kind of stuff, isn't it?
All of those key nutrients, really, that we've really touched on, I guess, overall for that anti-aging process. And I think, if we think about, if people ask, well, what do I use for my skin? What supplements, what nutrients, what would be your sort of top things, Nick, that you'd use for skin health? And
essential fatty acids is a big one for me. And then your antioxidants, vitamin C's, things like that. Again, not overloading on anything.
No.
Particularly antioxidants, we see a lot of people that do load up on them, and they're an antioxidant, but too much of it they then can become a pro-oxidant. So you want to be careful that
especially
you're not
vitamin C,
doing
right?
Vitamin C sound like that's a big one that people overdose on, and it can have its own issues.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Zinc's another one.
Zinc's an important one, especially with men as well. Not really caring about the guys. But zinc a very important one as well. Silica, this is another one. Sulfur. I'm a big fan of sulfur. So sulfur is like that mineral that you can get. You get that in all your cruciferous vegetables, right? Your broccoli, your kale, your cabbage. Eggs contains a lot of sulfur. And sulfur is the building blocks of so many things in the body, of the joints, the cartilage, the bones, the skin, all of that. And a lot of people, I think, may not necessarily get as much sulfur in, because they don't eat as much vegetables and things like that. So.
And sulfur's great for the liver too. And so that detoxification,
a lot of people say that I can't eat garlic, I can't eat those cruciferous vegetables because they really don't go well for me. And then you go, well, then we've got to look to the liver and go, what's going on there?
Or the gut. Because it could be hydrogen, sulfur-reducing organisms overgrown or things like that, right? Again, such an important nutrient.
It is,
definitely. So I guess we're probably getting close to the end there. I guess we could start to look at wrapping it up. And have a look at, maybe talk about what aging means to each of us?
I think for me, considering what we've kind of talked about, it is kind of like I've always been a little bit obsessed about the nutrient aspect. So I've always looked at food as not enjoyable, and I'm not necessarily saying that's a healthy viewpoint to have of food. For me, it wasn't about the enjoyment of food. It was for me like, how is this going to fuel my body? How is this going to fuel my cells? What does this mean in terms of health? So I always looked at food in that way, which is why it wasn't hard for me to cut out sugar and gluten and dairy. And it's just like, no, I want to feed my cells what it needs for maximum optimal health, right? Yeah. So that's always how I looked at it. Obviously not exposing. You can't not expose yourself to toxins. We live in the 21st century. Yeah. And, even if you live on an island, I'm sorry to say, you'll still be exposed to some kind of toxins. So it's just about minimizing that exposure. But for me, that's the kind of stuff that I believe will make me live to beyond 100 years old and still in good health. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. We can always look back and say whether I was right or wrong. But that's what it means for me, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What about you, Nick?
Well, I mean, I think... for me, pretty much, as I said in the beginning, because I just remembered we have already covered on this thing, but we need to reinforce it.
Yes.
Definitely that mobility, that sort of thing. But I think also just to get the message across that, aging doesn't begin when you're 40 and 50. So that sort of looking after how you age.
Starts at Danielle's age.
So Dan, you've got to be the trailblazer here.
The pressure starts.
Yeah.
Trust us.
I trust you both. I definitely do.
Because it's what you do in those years that really has an effect on how you age into the future. So,
Absolutely.
If you are in your 20s, then that's something that should be in your mind as well. And it is hard because you think you're going to live forever when you're 20, and even into your 30s, you don't think that you're ever going to die. And then as you get older, and people start to die around you, and when I was young, and all my favourite actors and things like that, and you had a crush on them, these hot actors, and now they're like they're old men, or they're dying.
They're dying, right?
It's just like, what is going on? How did this happen? So I don't know how I got into that, but anyway, it does. You get there pretty quickly. Just ensuring that you are living a really healthy lifestyle when you are younger will take you a lot further into when you're getting more into your 50s and 60s and 70s. And I don't really think that, I don't look at old age as being until you're in your 70s, 80s,
It's not a
90s.
number, is
No,
it?
It's not a
it's
number,
not.
no. And that's exactly right. As we said earlier, you can have a 50-year-old who's really old and, you can't move around a lot and it has no quality of life. Or you can have a 50-year-old that's running around like a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
So
I've seen 60-year-olds who's like fitter and healthier and leaner than a lot of 20-year-olds,
That's
right?
right.
So it's definitely not about a number.
No, and I don't go on the, well, you're 50 now, so, or, I'm getting older, so I have to expect that this is going to happen.
Oh,
I
yes.
hate it when
Me
people say
too.
that, because it's like, no.
It's not an excuse.
It's not
That's
an
it.
excuse at all, and I think people do use that a lot, particularly with, movement and that sort of thing, or they think, what's the point now? I'm too old. It's like, you're never too old to start to be healthy.
Yeah.
And
But it's also doctors using that a lot, right? It's like if someone goes and complains, like, oh, you're just getting old.
Yes.
Oh, isn't it?
I hate that.
Or, you're 50 and you're expected to be on how many medications by that age?
Right? Yeah.
That for me has been quite shocking.
Yes.
So
Yeah, well, you get that letter in the mail at 50 saying now it's time for your colonoscopy because you're at that age. So I think that's a big one, that we shouldn't buy into that. Aging is a negative thing for one, and that
It's actually great.
It is.
I'm enjoying getting older.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the way I see it is every day is another achievement. You've got through another day.
Yeah.
So every year that you get ahead, you're like, well, I've made it through another year.
Yeah.
Phew.
Well, I guess I'm going to use you two as my absolute inspiration. So because, I'm in my 20s, and aging, honestly, it's been something that I've focused on a lot more, particularly doing what I do for work and seeing other clients and things. So, but coming back to that natural health approach, it's really what we can do holistically, and I agree, it's not sort of going, okay, I'm this age, so this is where it means I'm limited now. And I think life is more about those stages. We go through stages no matter what age we are, and it's just adapting to that and making the most of that. But it's that quality of life. And I think it's such a cliche term, but honestly, I want everyone, no matter what age they are, to see that life is not really, it's not about just surviving. We're not here just to exist.
Yes, thank you.
And we're not here just to survive. It's how do we thrive? And you can be that thriving 90-year-old, thriving 100-year-old, because you two are getting there, and I'm going to hopefully follow by. I'm holding you to it. I'm holding you to it.
We got a while to go yet.
We're not into the adult nappies or anything like that yet.
You youngins.
We're optimistic, right? I'm trying to be optimistic. But no, it's really, I think it's about thriving, because I know there's even 20-year-olds that aren't, you know, they don't feel like they're living life to the best that they can. So it's not, aging is not about what age you are.
Exactly.
It's what you're doing every day to support your health and feel the best that you can while you're here. So yeah,
definitely.
that's the way I see it.
There's a difference between biological age and chronological age, right?
Exactly.
Like I never remember which one is which, but there's a difference.
That was the big thing in the probably 90s, was everyone was doing their chronological and biological age. It's like, oh look, I'm 30, but it says I'm 20, and that sort of thing. Actually, I don't know how much validity was in those, but
oh look, I think there was a lot of validity because
you were so much younger.
Well, I did a test like that, you know. Again, when I probably in my mid 30s, and it showed I was like 18 or something. I was like, sweet, you know.
I've done them too. Got to be honest, and mine were pretty good too, to be honest. Just saying.
That's right.
So I'd like to think that there's a lot of validity.
We're doing the right things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's right. Cool. All right. Well, I think we've covered
pretty much wrap it up, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Fun talk.
It has been.
Great talk.
Yeah. I really like that.
So much we can talk about in the
I know.
We
future.
could go forever.
Yeah.
It's endless.
We
And
could
any
go
sort
into
of
100.
any questions, feedback that anyone's got that might be, you know, the inspiration for our next
Absolutely.
next podcast episode.
What do you want to hear us talk about?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear us talk about?
Anything, you know, it's like the world's open to any talks.
Yeah,
definitely.
Awesome.
Well,
thanks,
thanks,
ladies.
Yeah, thanks. It was good.
Great
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Speak to you soon. Bye.